So I want to say a few more words about maturity. If we think of maturity as something that can happen in this moment, not as a goal over time, but it's like a choice in the moment or a possibility in the moment. Maturity in the moment. Like being aware of what's going on right now, owning my experience in this moment, and making conscious choice in this moment. So that's a simple model of maturity in the moment. Being aware, being responsible, and making choice. Awareness, responsibility, and choice. If those three factors are operating together in this moment, there's a certain level of maturity happening. The maturity of awareness. Awareness is knowing what's happening. Awareness is being the space for what's happening. Responsibility is owning my experience. I'm with it. And conscious choice is owning my action. My action is coming from this awareness, this responsibility. So that's one way to look at maturity, maturity in the moment. A very simple model, but each of these components is huge. Awareness is a huge topic, responsibility is a huge topic, and choice is a big topic. But I like the perspective that whatever is important for us from a spiritual perspective or an existential perspective must be possible to live now in this moment to some degree. Because spirituality or meditation is about the present moment. It is not about reaching somewhere in the future. It is about having a certain approach or a certain way of relating to this moment. So obviously, it must be possible right now, right away, immediately. Thich Nhat Hanh, my Zen master teacher, he always said, a moment of mindfulness is a moment of enlightenment. And I really like that phrase. A moment of mindfulness is a moment of enlightenment. So enlightenment is not a future goal, but it's a possibility in this moment. By being completely here, I am awake to this moment. I am awakened. And that is a form of maturity. Maturity is to be awake in the moment, to be responsible for this experience, and to own my choices. It is my choice from my awareness. So if we turn it upside down, say, well, if that's the case, then what is immaturity? Spiritual immaturity. Well, it's disregarding what's right here, pretending it's not here. For instance, let's say I'm annoyed, I'm angry, and somebody points at me and says, you're angry. I said, no, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. So I refuse awareness of what's the truth of the moment. That's a kind of immaturity. I don't own my experience. I don't take responsibility for what I feel. That's a kind of immaturity. And then my action is reactive. So I become reactive instead of responsive. I act on an automatic pilot. So that would be immaturity, the opposite of those three things in the moment. So if we look at it like this, I could ask everybody, does it happen that you're really mature from this perspective? How many can say yes, that sometimes you're really mature from this perspective? How many of you are sometimes really immature from this perspective? I think, I suspect that 100% of us in this meeting are both very immature and very mature, depending on the moment. Would you agree? From this perspective? I think I wrote in the email, or maybe I wrote on Facebook about maturity, that I like to distinguish between the world of ego, or the world of conventional reality or personality, the way we have learned to behave and be from the world, from society. We have developed a certain coping mechanism in life, certain personality, certain habits. We can call it ego structures, personality, coping mechanism. And that can be fine-tuned and become mature in its own level. Like, you can have a maturity within the conventional ego perspective. So that's one side. The other side is the spiritual dimension, what I call inner being or heart or presence or spirituality. So these are not the same. So the spiritual dimension are the qualities of the heart, the qualities of being. That's one simple way to understand it, to get a grasp of it. So what are those qualities of the heart, of being? Let me ask you, what are the qualities of heart? What are the qualities of being? Can I hear some examples on the chat? Compassion, love, joy, trust, peace, softness, limitlessness, empathy, receptivity, curiosity, truth, embracing, playfulness, kindness. Kidness is also an interesting word. We could say kidness. I know you mean kindness, but kidness could be like innocence, respect, wonder, clarity, acceptance, attunement. Okay, thank you. Innocence. So those words are words for the spiritual reality of life. Now, we don't learn that in school. At least I didn't. My teachers didn't tell me that in school that those qualities are spiritual qualities. See, in modern life, modern scientific worldview, there are no spiritual qualities. They are not allowed in the scientific worldview. They belong to the church on Sundays or something. But if you look at it differently, those words that everybody finds to be the most important thing in life are qualities of being. I mean, it is quite obvious if we look at it. Trust, compassion, space, openness, clarity, curiosity, innocence. If we feel into those words, really let them impact us, we immediately enter into what I call the spiritual dimension. It is not something strange or esoteric or unusual. It is right here, right away. And we live in a world that doesn't really honor and recognize and give proper attention to what that means in practice. We treat these words in general culture as like feelings. Yeah, those are nice feelings, but they are not feelings. They are deeper than feelings. So, unless we get a certain sense of those qualities, we cannot have a deeper maturity. Because the maturity within the personality level is very limited. True maturity comes with a recognition of those qualities, which are qualities of our deeper humanity, humanness. So maturation means an integration of those qualities, a development of those qualities, a recognition of those, an understanding of those qualities, an access to those qualities, and a capacity to live those qualities in the messy, ugly, difficult, often stressful daily life. It does not belong to church on Sundays. Those words describe how to engage with life on a daily basis. That is how relationships can work. How can we be mature in a relationship? Only by living those qualities in the dynamic of communication, for instance. How do we act when we are triggered by our romantic partner? How do we act when we are triggered by our mother, our father, our brother, our sister? How do we act? How do we react? That's when the reality of our maturity is shown in a strong mirror. Okay, I'm not so cool as I'm not so enlightened as I thought after spending those weeks or months in the meditation retreat. Yes, I had some beautiful spiritual experiences, but in the furnace of everyday living, I realized those qualities are not deeply embodied and integrated necessarily. So, to have experienced these qualities is not itself maturity. Maturity means an ability to bring those qualities into life somehow. Are you with me so far? It's a big topic we have tonight. Now I want to mention one more thing I find very important. Whatever topic we explore, and especially with maturity, I think secretly most people who have some self-awareness feel that they are not as mature as they should be, including this one. How many can recognize what I just said? See a show of hands. Yeah, so that's 92%. So basically, if we look at it like that, I'm just going to check. You should be more mature than you are. Now, this voice that speaks like that is a lie. It is not true. It is an untrue statement. It is a lie. It is a lie that you should be more mature than you are. Why? Because it is impossible. It is impossible to be more mature than you are. So it cannot be true. It's like I say, the sun should be blue. It's impossible that the sun should be blue because the sun is yellow-orange. That's just the way it is. And the same is for every other should. This should statement is the voice of the inner critic. So when we discuss maturity, it is so important to keep an eye on this should voice. Oh yeah, I should be more present, I should be more loving, I should be less reactive, I should be less addictive, I should be less this, I should be more that. No, this is not maturity to try to live up to that judgmental voice in the head. Maturity is to notice the judgmental voice in the head and say, fuck off. That's maturity. Or you don't need to use such language. You can say, thank you, I'm not listening to you. Because it's not true. I can only be as mature as I am in this moment. That's it. Maturity is to recognize that what I am in this moment, that's what I am. And it cannot be different. So to try to live up to some ideal, so this inner critic has a friend called the perfectionist. The perfectionist sets a standard that you're supposed to live up to. And if you're not mature like that, then you're a bad and failed person. Now, nobody wants to be a bad and failed person. So that's why we listen to the third friend up there. That's the inner pusher. He says, work harder, you got to be more mature. You have the perfectionist setting the standard. You have the pusher pushing you, and you have the critic criticizing you for failing. Now, how fun is that on a scale from 1 to 10, living life under the spell of those three voices? Three. That's a high number, Azam. So, I am not talking about having some idea about what maturity is and how to reach there in the future. This is not the approach of Zen, of consciousness. Consciousness is something that must be possible now. It is awareness, it is acceptance, it is allowance. It is all those qualities that you mentioned brought into this moment. It is to be in the truth of the moment. So to recognize my immaturities is a sign of maturity. But to judge myself for my immaturities is a sign of immaturity. Or to listen, to believe in the self-judgments is a sign of immaturity. And when can I shift out of that? When is a good time to shift out of that? Now. Now, it's always now. So the good news, always in Zen coaching, in meditation, in consciousness, always, the good news is it's always possible right away. We don't need a future. Whatever we're looking for, we don't need a future for it. From a spiritual perspective, if I want to learn how to play piano, I need a future for it. But that's a different kind of thing, skill development. Okay, now I would